Hello, Cheyenne. I'm responding to your paper 2 here. Okay. Architecture is widely known to be a creative endeavor in the pursuit of an architect. Though this idea upholds its truth, the creative aspect of it also comes with its controversies. One of the most popular is the argument of what mediums should be used during the design process. Mediums, more commonly known as materials, create the final basis of an architect's design. Every material is made up of its own unique features, creating its own controversies. While there is no right or wrong answer as to what material is good or bad, there are a few that have been in question recently: drywall, concrete, and bamboo. In order for an architect to gain an opinion on materials such as these, they look at its materiality, mechanical properties, eco-friendly aspects, and other bits and pieces of how favorable it is. Okay, introductions are so hard. I don't feel like you really started your paper until we got to, while there is no right or wrong answer as to what material is good or bad. Sentences before that, it kind of confused me. You don't have to, I know that many times people have worked on the skill of starting a paper with this is what architecture is, and it's been around forever, and we can get something smaller, and then more recently, and then we'll talk about materials. That's a wonderful model to use a lot of the time, but for this paper, I would suggest that either you can just kind of jump right in, or you can shorten that up maybe, because I feel like in that first couple sentences, you weren't really saying anything while you were confusing me a little bit. But once you get going into this part, I'm like, oh yeah, here we are, here we're going. You've got it. Okay. Paragraph 2. There are a few steps in the design process of an architect. Oh, sorry, I was going to back up and say, so you have this part in here, which seems like your thesis. We haven't talked a lot about thesis statements, but here is what you're going to tell us about, right? You're going to tell us about drywall, concrete, and bamboo. And you're going to talk about materiality, mechanical properties, eco-friendly aspects. Yes. Good. Okay. There are a few steps in the design process of an architect, one of these being the decision on what materials to use. During this process, it's important to note that when considering a material, the final choice is entirely up to the client. It's only an architect's job to recommend and provide an assessment on potential mediums. Nevertheless, an architect will still look at the materiality of the medium, or in other words, the immediate feeling one gets upon touching a surface. The materiality of the medium. Okay. This can be described as the cold window or the warm wood. It can be described as a cold window. The medium is described as a cold window. I don't think that's what you mean. Maybe you mean something more like, for example, a window feels cold and wood feels warm, maybe? These feelings help architects decide what medium suits the design best, and by choosing the right material, an architect can completely change the atmosphere in the design. This allows for the architect to cater to the needs of their clientele, thus fulfilling the design overall. Along with materiality, architects consider other characteristics of material as well. Okay, let me back up here a little bit. So you told us you were going to cover drywall, concrete, bamboo, and then you told us you're going to look at materiality, mechanical properties, eco-friendly aspects. Okay, so this is the paragraph about materiality. That makes me wonder, maybe you should not talk about drywall, concrete, and bamboo if it's going to be quite a while before you come back to that, because I was really expecting that we were going to go into drywall first. So yeah, I think you want to, it makes more sense to me that you would preview maybe just more generally in your introduction. Well, there's no right or wrong. Yeah, like I said, it just made me feel like we're flapping back and forth, and I'm like, wait, what are we talking about? When you mention the different materials and the different aspects, both in the introduction. Sorry. Disregarding controversies, most architects agree on basic principles that a satisfactory material possesses. Okay, according to the editors at Architects, whatever that is, it's important for a material to have good mechanical properties. Mechanical properties describe how a material reacts to an applied force. These properties change depending on temperature, the form a material is taking, and how the force is applied. Okay, a few include strength, hardness, and elasticity. Strength focuses on the medium's ability to not break or bend under stress. It is essential to emphasize that the material's break and bend doesn't have to be sudden, but can appear over time. Yeah, that seemed important. Wow, once you're getting into this part, I'm feeling like you are really, your voice is a lot more confident, and you're feeling like you know where you're going. And you seem to be using the quotes well, a direct quote, and then a paraphrase, the second one there. One example of this is a wooden beam with a hanging fixture. As time progresses, the fixture pulls the beam down, causing it to bow. Bow, right? Yeah. Moving forward, hardness can be determined on how easily the material can be scratched. Okay, wait. So we're talking about strength, hardness, elasticity. And the first one you talked about is strength. And then you're talking about, I think we're having a similar issue here. I'm having a similar issue here, which is don't preview everything and then go through it. I would introduce things one at a time, maybe. Or split this into multiple paragraphs. I just like, maybe it's just me, but like once we get to hardness can be determined, that part, I've like kind of lost what we were talking about. I think that might help. Just introduce one at a time. Moving forward, hardness, sorry. For instance, a metal screw can be drilled into wood because it's significantly harder. Lastly, elasticity is the ability of a material to go back into its initial shape after being applied with stress. Two comparisons of this include concrete and steel. Concrete is labeled as inelastic, whereas steel is not. Go back to its initial shape after being applied with stress. Yes, okay, sure. Similar to the common agreement of what a satisfactory material possesses, architects also agree on what makes a material unsatisfactory. I mean, I'm not sure I would say they agree. I would say there's like some maybe general agreement, maybe. Just anytime you make a sentence like architects agree, it's like, I mean, to get support for that, we have to interview every architect in the universe and then run the numbers. We don't want to do that. Considering the eco-friendly movement hasn't been more active than it is today. Considering the eco-friendly movement hasn't been more active than it is today. So you're saying it today it hasn't been more active. So it's especially active now. I think this morning was the class where we were talking about cutting out extra words, and I think that little phrase is a great place to cut things out. I know it makes it longer, but cutting things off makes it better, which is more important. Because yeah, I think what you're basically just trying to say is that environmental concerns right now are like super, super big deal. Without all those supers, of course. What is commonly believed as an unsatisfactory material? What is commonly believed? I think we need to say what is commonly believed is that an unsatisfactory material is based on how high its carbon footprint is. Okay. So I think what's confusing me here is what's commonly believed is that the idea of the carbon footprint maybe needs to go first in that sentence. When you start off with what is commonly believed, I was ready for you to say, like, what is commonly believed is that glass is inspiring and concrete is depressing or something like that. But what you were getting ready to do, what is commonly believed, is you were getting ready to say that, like, a lot of times when they rate a building, they look at, for how environmentally friendly it is, they look at this carbon footprint thing. Okay. Another book by the same author, huh? Under the terms of architecture, carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases a material releases during its manufacturing process. In The Scale of Carbon, an infographic created by the Materials Council shows the amount of carbon dioxide a few major materials in the industry produce. The top three being clay, softwood, and sandstone, each producing over this much Furthermore, the amount of carbon dioxide produced by these materials and a few others listed make up 76% of all greenhouse gases. This makes them the top leading contributors to climate change. Okay, so, but you said this is how much they produce. Is that what is produced when they're manufactured? Or is that like what they produce themselves? That's a little unclear to me. Like, which part of the process is, or the like working with them? Which part of the process is it that creates the greenhouse gases? Though these factors overall seem to make an architect's final choices clear, it's not that simple. Many architects to this day have their own opinions on certain materials, making the center of attention when talking about controversies. I would just say I don't think it's clear at all. It seems very complicated to me from what you already told us. Okay, one of the biggest controversies to date is drywall. Drywall, also known as sheetrock, is a panel ranging from this to that, is used in the construction of walls and ceilings. There are many factors as to why architects highly recommend this paper-covered rock, and one of the major reasons is how cost-effective it is. Sheetrock costs $150 per panel, and to completely cover a 200-square-foot room, it can cost as low as $300. That is cheap. Another reason sheetrock is favorable to some architects, favorable. I think I would say sheetrock is preferred by some architects. So, like, favorable means, like, you would say appropriate for. So, like, you have favorable weather conditions. I mean, not just appropriate, but, like, good for. So you have favorable weather conditions. You have weather conditions that are just right for doing whatever you want to do, ski or hike, right? Which would be different kinds of weather. So yeah, I think what you want there is something more like, sorry, I lost my place. That happens. Excuse me, something other than favorable. I think it would be preferred, or it would be useful or effective, or something like that. Okay. Now the reason sheetrock is favorable to some architects is how fire resistant it is. Its center is made of gypsum, a soft sulfate material similar to chalk, which makes this possible. Oh, okay, which makes it fire resistant. Gotcha. One final point is how sustainable the product is. In the US, drywall is almost 100% made of a recycled material. Gypsum is 90 to 95% recycled drywall. Like the gypsum from old drywall? And the paper that covers the gypsum is 100% recycled newspaper. No way, that's cool. While sheetrock has its perks, it also has its downfalls. I'm so picky about your word choice. I don't know why. I'm not being so annoying about that. But I feel like downfalls, I'm sorry, I'm going to get petty. Downfalls are things that happen to people. I wouldn't bug you so much about this if it wasn't pretty sciencey paper too, where wanting to use language that's like more clear than exciting or more clear than lovely is the thing. So I would say it's downfalls. Pitfalls, I think, might be what you wanted to say. Pitfalls. It also has its pitfalls. It also has its liabilities. I don't know. It also has its challenges when you use it or something. Oh, almost done with video one. Okay. One of the biggest reasons drywall has become popular over the years is due to its carbon footprint and health hazards. During the process of sheetrock, mass amounts of carbon dioxide are emitted into the atmosphere. This creates up to 1% of greenhouse gases, attributing to the climate change crisis. So when you mentioned before how much it contributed to greenhouse gases, okay, 76%. Okay, you may not need to tie those together in any way. I was just going back to that. A health hazard of drywall is its ability to grow mold. When used in high moisture-ridden rooms, such as a bathroom or basement, water damage becomes significantly more prominent, increasing this risk. Moving forward, sheetrock's environment and health hazards aren't the only aspects affecting it. Moving forward, sheetrocks. So you need to say environmental and health hazards. Because the way you have it now, sheetrock's environment isn't the only thing affecting it. Sheetrock's environment would be like where sheetrock lives, like in the factory where they make it or something. I don't know. Okay. So then I just start imagining this sheetrock living in this place, and I'm writing a story about it in my mind because I'm crazy. Okay. Another problem is the installation process. While it's fairly easy to install, well, yes, I have in fact installed it. If not done properly, there could be issues with the joints or tapes in the future. Okay. It's also exceptionally easy to damage, making cracks, holes, and other issues very common.